Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one we are going to stick to Skåne here in the south of Sweden, my home county if you like, and we're going to return to one of my local breweries who I've had some really interesting experiences with in the past. For this review then we are going to go to Landskrona where I used to work, and we're having a look at yet another beer from the Derailed series by Brygghuset Finn, which basically translates into English as the nice brew house. So this particular beer is called the Juicy Yuzu. It's a New England style IPA coming in at 6.3%, and obviously it has a little bit of Japanese yuzu added to it. So yuzu of course is that little Japanese citric fruit with the very kind of distinctive and strong flavour if you like. It's like a little mix between lemon and lime, but it's got the kind of pungency that you might expect of grapefruit. It's got that kind of pungent, zesty kind of quality that you'd expect of that stronger, darker grapefruit actually. So I've had a number of yuzu beers on the channel before, but I think this is actually the first time I've tried it in a New England IPA. So this one I think should make for a very interesting review. I've had a good number of beers from the Derailed series, the Raspberry Wheat, the Bourbon Bock. I'm trying to think what the other ones are, but there's always some interesting beers come out as part of that series, and hopefully this is another good one. If memory serves me correctly, this beer was released very early February as part of the local and Småsigligt assortment through Systembolaget as well. So yeah, really curious to try this one. Definitely nice to have another yuzu beer for you on the channel, and as always I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this beer. Quite cool to return to Brygghuset Finn after quite a wee while as well actually. So let's see how we get on then. So as always with my reviews, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brygghuset Finn before. No doubt there will be some more at some point in the near future. There's all the usual social media. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. The whole channel of course has a geography based tagging system, so you can go into the homepage and search for beer based on country, city, county, state, province, prefecture, whatever it is that takes your fancy. Do check out the playlists of beers from different countries. There is one there for all the Swedish beers that I've reviewed for you. That's constantly being added to, and as always please do get in touch and let me know some of the other beers and breweries that you guys would like to see me review. It's always great to hear from you guys that are watching the videos, and the support that you show the channel is hugely appreciated. So anyway, on to my brewery notes then to tell you a little bit about Brygghuset Finn. So, as I mentioned to you earlier, Brygghuset Finn are based in Landskrona, which is kind of halfway between me here and Lund to the south, famous university town, and Helsingborg to the north, in the kind of northwest corner of Skåne. And the company was founded by two former students of Lund University. This is Peter Lindholm and Simon Fremberg, both of whom studied entrepreneurship. But as part of their course they had to basically create and plan a fictitious company, and for this they decided to plan a brewery. But little did they know at the time they started this that they would turn it into a reality. So Simon was an avid home brewer, and he'd brewed beer during his time in the university halls of residence in his corridor room where he'd lived along with friend Joachim Larsson, who was who many a time was the guinea pig for these very early beers that they produced, and he is now the company's CEO. After finishing university they found a perfect location for the brewery behind the old railway station in Landskrona, which is just kind of behind Rådhustorget basically. It's just you walk up towards the Systembolaget and you'll find the old train station up there. But they ordered custom made equipment towards the end of 2013, and they produced their first beers in this brewery in early 2014, and as of 2018 they were producing around 250,000 litres of beer per year, but they are working through a plan at the moment to increase the volume of production to around 1 million litres of beer per year by the end of 2021 from what I understand. But they're a really nice little brewery. As I say, as I've said in some other videos actually, the beers that they seem to have in their core range, they're a little bit more like kind of restaurant-y, very sessionable, drinkable type beers, but if you have some of the beers from the Derailed series, those can be very nice. The Bourbon Bock was a lovely beer. The Raspberry Wheat was very nice too. They've had a few other ones come out in this series recently, but this is one that just really caught my eye because it is a Yuzu New England IPA. So yeah, try some of the beers from these guys. They've got some really interesting stuff coming out in the Derailed series, and if you want something a bit lighter and more sessionable, if you like, more of a kind of food pairing-y type beer, then you can check out their core range. So yeah, that's all you really need to know about Brygghuset Finn for the moment. I'm sure we can we'll be returning to these guys in the future as well, so there will be more added to the notes as we go on. But if you want to learn more for the moment, check out the brewery website in the description below. You can follow them on Facebook and Instagram to keep up to date with all the latest goings on, and you can check out the Rate Beer, Untappd and Beer Advocate pages to get more information on all the different beers that they've done. So yeah, let's get on and actually have a taste of this one then. So I'll let you have a little look at the artwork of this before we open up, but there's not too much to see on this one. They've just got the little, it's very straightforward, kind of effective. It just tells you a little bit, or just shows you exactly what a yuzu looks like. Like I say, a very small kind of citric fruit here. It tells you on the side here, Juicy Yuzu is a fresh IPA made from the Asian citrus fruit known as yuzu. This fruit characterises the balance between sweetness, sourness, and it reminds you of a mix between grapefruit and mandarin oranges. It's an interesting way actually. I would have thought it was more, I always found it more kind of lemon limey, but a little bit more with the pungency of grapefruit. So yeah, interesting that. But this one has just the right taste balance that makes it fit well with the hoppy aromas of a classic IPA with a modern twist. And this one, this is what you hold in your hand, it's saying at the end here. So yeah, I've kind of paraphrased the translation a little bit, but you know, that's basically what it says. So a Yuzu New England IPA, this one coming in at 6.3% ABV. This is one of these little tall 330 milliliter cans, of course the Red Bull type cans, but yeah, let's get this guy out and we'll get on with the tasting. The last beer that I reviewed from Brygghuset Finn, if I remember correctly, was called Pentahops, and I think it was a New England IPA with 5 different kinds of hops in it, but it turned out really quite nice actually, and I'm sure I said that it would be a bit of a shame if that beer was only a one-off brew, because normally these derailed beers are only one-offs, but I know that the raspberry wheat beer and the bourbon bock did make comebacks, so we'll need to see how this one turns out actually. But yeah, it actually looks very similar to the Pentahops, but not surprising when you consider what style this beer is supposed to be. So as you can see with this one, it's poured a lovely, quite bright, this one's leaning towards the yellowy end of the New England spectrum. It's got quite a hazy quality to it. It is pretty opaque. If I put my fingers behind it, you can see there's not a lot of light travelling through this beer. There's 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking to the side of the glass, but not that many. A few little ones just going up towards the bottom of the head there, but you know, overall it does look pretty much as you would expect from a New England IPA. The head on this one is faded away very, very quickly, but I would say it was just about a kind of quarter finger of a frothy, kind of creamy, white coloured head. Going by the sort of thin foamy layer that's there, I would be tempted to say that it is a little bit more creamy. But yeah, let's have a look at the aroma of this one then and see how we get on. Nothing overly surprising about the appearance of this beer when you consider it as a fruit New England IPA. So yeah. Oh yeah, straight away with this one. Yeah, the yuzu jumps out at you straight away. Like I was saying, it's got a little bit of that kind of lemon limey quality to it, but it's got the kind of darkness and pungency that you would expect of grapefruit. So that's really quite nice actually. Yeah, it's a bit nostalgic for me, this one. I think one of the first yuzu beers, I think it was called Temple Garden Yuzu from Baird Beer, who are from Numazu in Shizuoka in Japan. That was the first time I encountered that, and oddly enough, I think that might have actually come through Systembolaget back in like 2016 or something like that. It was the first time I encountered yuzu in a beer, and then when I went over to Japan, there was a number of other breweries over there who were using it in their beers. But yeah, you get that big yuzu pungency out of this beer straight away. And to be honest with you, that actually dominates the aroma. You can pick out a little bit of wheatiness underneath this one. It does have a little bit of that bite to the malt base. There is some oaty creaminess in there, maybe some biscuit as well. But as I say, all of those really take a back seat for me in comparison to the yuzu that comes out of this beer. The more you smell of the malt base and the more your nose kind of saturates to it, you start to get more of these, you really start to feel the wheatiness and the oatiness kind of smoothing out, but you've got a lovely biscuity quality to this one as well. So yeah, bear that in mind when you try this beer actually. I like how it goes together. yeah, it's got a nice balance between that kind of pungent fruitiness from the yuzu and the smoother malty characters as well. It does get a bit sweet, as I say, it gets more and more sweet the longer you smell it. In terms of the hoppiness, I'd say that this one is quite grassy. There is a little bit of a floral note to this one, but it's kind of hard to distinguish that because of how pungent the yuzu is in my mind. But I've found this with yuzu beers before, that the yuzu is that strong that it really does dominate the aroma. You get this with quite often with a lot of these Asian fruits that you put in the beers, in these beers, like yuzu especially is I wouldn't say quite bad for it, but yuzu is a very pungent smelling aroma. It's quite often used in Japanese cooking, of course, as well. So yeah, bear that in mind when you smell this beer. The aroma is very kind of straight shooting, if you like. So yeah, take a bit of time and smell the beer for yourself. I think it gets sweeter as you go further into the aroma as well, but overall it's quite a nice solid smelling fruity IPA this. I'm really curious to see how the flavour of this one comes out, though. I think it will have a bit more complexity in the flavour than it does in the aroma, to be honest with you. So yeah, let's have a taste of this one then. This one is the Juicy Yuzu, a New England IPA coming in at 6.3% with yuzu added to the brew, part of the Derailed series from Brygghuset Finn in Landskrona here in Skåne in the south of Sweden. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål. Yeah, that's interesting because in the beginning it really comes out as just a big oily fruit beer, but then when you start to go into the aftertaste a little bit, it comes across as more of a kind of fruity, smooth New England IPA, if you like. That's a really interesting point to make about this beer, actually. But I will say, I like this one. This one gets another thumbs up from me. Yeah, it's nice. This, I mean, I've always liked yuzu. For some people, they might find the pungency of this fruit to make it a little bit like a more acquired taste. One person who I'd be curious to hear their opinion about this beer would be Peter over at the Clueless Drinker. He really likes these grapefruit beers, and you know, I can see that if you like a grapefruit ale, that you would quite enjoy this one. If you like those really strong, pungent fruits, I think yuzu might be right up your street as well. But yeah, it is a little bit of a shame if this is only a one-off, because I think it's quite nice. I mean, I don't know how difficult it is for them to get yuzu over here. I guess it probably would have to be a seasonal if they're going to introduce it on a regular basis of any kind. But I will say that this is a pretty solid fruit beer in my mind. I probably would consider it more of a fruit beer than a New England IPA. But you know, that's just what happens. Yuzu kind of takes over the flavour of your beer, really. But let's try and break this one down a little bit then. So the middle of your palate, you can feel there is a little bit of a wheaty quality there. That blankets the middle of the tongue. If you go towards the back of the palate, you can feel the wheat sort of kind of just jumping off the tongue a little bit. And as you come further forward on the palate, it does kind of smoothen out and sweeten up a little bit, actually. As you almost reach the kind of front part of your tongue, you can feel the more oaty, creamy notes of the beer. But if you go into the very centre of your tongue there, you'll get the more kind of sweet, biscuity kind of note out of this beer. And it's like quite an oily it's like an oily McVitie's Digestive kind of biscuit quality that you'll get out of this beer. So that's really quite interesting, actually. I like how that all goes together. So yeah, you will start to notice these flavours a little bit more the further that you go into the aftertaste as well. But the fruitiness that this beer has, that really makes the whole malt base, I think, seem more oily than it actually is. So this beer, to me, it's definitely one of the, if you consider it as a New England IPA, it's definitely one of the more oily ones that I've come across in recent times. But it really suits it, actually. The flavours come out very nicely. If you go to the back of the palate then, the back corners of the palate, there's a wee teeny bit of earthiness there, but again that's quite minimal. As you come further forward along the sides of the palate, you can feel a little bit of floral quality there, and there is a wee bit of a grassy flavour around the front curve of the tongue too. But the thing is, whenever you add fruit into a beer, what it always does is suppress some of the kind of hoppy bitterness that the beer has. The fruity notes always come out on just the very edge of your palate and just take away from the bitterness of this beer. So to me, I would think this one's very, very low in terms of its IBUs, but you do get a degree of something similar from just the pungency of the fruit that's in here. So it's really the yuzu notes that are sitting there around the kind of front edge of your palate, which is quite nice. Behind the front curve of the palate, of course, that's where you get that nice oily bubble where the juicy fruity esters start to push their way out of the beer, and it's difficult actually to pick out what is in this one. I'd be really curious to know what hops they would have used in this beer. I mean, would they have just gone for like Soriachi Ace? I mean, would they be able to get Japanese grown Soriachi Ace, because it does have that really kind of pungenty limey note. It's a very nice hop to use in Japanese style pilsners actually. You put a little bit of rice in the malt base there and put some Soriachi Ace in it, and you can get a beautiful beer if you brew it properly. So I wonder about that actually, because the beer, maybe they could have put like a little bit Centennial or Equinox, because there is a kind of, in that oily bubble, there is a bit of a kind of lemon limey type quality to this one, and in fairness, both of those hops would work pretty well with this, with the yuzu flavour actually, because it really does have a little bit of that kind of zesty pungency as you go further into the flavour. But really the lemon limey notes are kind of minimal compared to the other things that are going on in there. It's really that big yuzu flavour, and as I say, it's got the pungency of a grapefruit, but for me it's got a little bit of a kind of, it's a combination. It's got the main flavour of the fruit, it's got the pungency of lemon, but the flavour itself is a little bit more like lime. I don't find it too orangey or mandarin-y, to be honest. So that's kind of interesting actually. It's a very unique flavour that you just really need to try on its own to kind of appreciate. But I will say that Brygghuset Finn have produced a really nice beer here actually. The smoothness that you're getting from the New England IPA, for example, if you tried it, I'm sure I've had a yuzu wit beer from some brewery at some point as well, but the smoothness that you get from the New England IPA in this works very, very well with the juiciness of the fruit in here. So thumbs up to Brygghuset Finn for this. This is another nice addition to the Derailed series actually. You know, that would be a nice beer to sell along with, maybe being stereotypical here, but this would be a very nice beer to pair with some kind of Asian food, with like Thai food. There's a very good Thai restaurant in Landskrona, of course, as well. I forget the name of it now, but there's a couple of really good Thai restaurants in Landskrona actually. So this would be a very good beer to get into some of those restaurants actually, to pair with the foods. But as I say, the difficulty for them might be making this beer regularly, because yuzu fruit I think is very seasonal, and I think you can only get it from Asia as well. But yeah, lovely beer this one, and it gets a thumbs up from me. I wouldn't hesitate to drink that again actually. This is why I always enjoy trying the Derailed series beers. But in terms of the mouthfeel then, I'd say that this is it's kind of a mid-bodied beer, starting to push the full-bodied end of the spectrum, to be honest. So yeah, nice big oily mouthfeel to this one. I might be tempted to say this one is full-bodied, particularly for the style. The mouthfeel is big and oily. It does have a degree of juiciness to it as well, and you've got a degree of smoothness there in the middle of the palate also. The malt base, like I say, is really quite smooth, but you're only going to notice that smoothing out and sweetening up a little bit the further you go into the aftertaste. Nice little, there's not much in the way of bitterness to this one, but again, that's kind of replaced just by the kind of pungency you get from this yuzu fruit, but you've got a lovely big kind of oily character to the fruity side of things as well, and overall it's just a really nice and quite quirky beer. So it gets a thumbs up from me, this one, and as I said, I wouldn't hesitate to drink it again. So well done to Brygghuset Finn for doing something a little bit different. I think they've pulled off a really nice beer with this. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. This one is the Juicy Yuzu Really fits its name actually. A 6.3% New England IPA with Yuzu added to the brew from the Derailed range at Brygghuset Finn in Landskrona in Skåne here in the south of Sweden. A really interesting beer this, and I'm glad I was able to pick up one of these to review for you. So yeah, I hope you've enjoyed my take on this one. It's been cool to return to this brewery after a little while. Thank you again for watching my beer reviews. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know what your favourite beers are from Brygghuset Finn as well. We will return to these guys at some point soon, and I'll be catching you guys a little bit later with some more beer reviews. So thank you again for watching, and I will catch you guys very soon. The Juicy Yuzu 6.3% New England IPA with Yuzu with the Derailed range at Brygghuset Finn in Landskrona, Skåne here in the south of Sweden. Until the next time, Slanja, Skål, cheers.